I've been a casting director for over 20 years. I work in film and television. I started in theater. I love actors. I love what they do. They're amazing at it. I just love that I get to collaborate with them and bring the best out of them, you know?
I grew up in a town, like I always talk about, I grew up in a town of 500 people, like in rural Canada, right? I've always loved fashion. I went to school for fashion, and it seemed like my mom was just like, my parents were probably like, she wants to pay money to study fashion in college, but it was always something in me.
How are you?
Thanks so much for having us.
Oh, we love this. Thank you.
What are some other requirements of a casting director's duties that actors may not even be aware of? Because they're all thinking, yes, they're the gatekeepers, and that's all they do is sit there and choose everybody that's going to go through. But what else? I didn't know there's more to that. There's more.
I think, when people think about gatekeepers, they think that they're being left out. And I really want actors to know that our job is actually to know who they are and where they are. And, and we're just, Dayna, you're just mentioning about, being more connected through the internet. It's really allowed us to, we know I'm jumping around a little bit, but we know that the world is self-taping right now. And because of that, we're just getting used to the language and the skill set,
Right.
Before, we all wanted to be in the office, and we resisted self-taping, then we embraced self-taping, and now we're running sessions online. Like we're just learning these new skill sets, and it's great. But to circle back to your question, I think, I think some misnomers are things that actors don't necessarily think about, is that we are not casting agents. There's no such thing. We are casting directors. We don't take a percentage. We don't represent you. And with that in mind, we are there to secure and elevate and expand the vision of the production team. So we're part of pre-production. So that's the early part. And I'm talking with producers, I'm talking with directors. I'm working on a project right now, which thankfully I'm also coming on as producer. But what's great about it is to be there from the ground up and the conversations that are happening. And then it makes me, or allows me, to bring even more to the table with respect to the how deep and how amazing the actors are who I know, but also bring forward and to meet actors who I may not know. And also with regards to equity, we're bringing in a lot of different we're bringing in a lot of different voices to the table as well, which I love. So I think that we're casting directors. We don't have the final say most of the time, I would say, but we certainly do influence those final choices.
Exactly. So casting directors are more like the key, but the actor's talent is what turns the key to open.
It's all within you. We're here to unlock it and unleash it and support it.
They're on our team. Yay! And Dayna, for you, I wanted to know, what are the 3 things that you think a model should know before getting into the industry? I know for myself, when I used to model, that there are a lot of shady and seedy characters out there who will proclaim themselves to be photographers and then use young ladies or young men for other stuff, or take their pictures and do whatever, So what would you say would be important for models to know before they step foot in the industry?
Well, definitely do your research, right? I always tell my models, when you were younger, do you remember when your parents said, don't get into a car with strangers? Like, don't talk to strangers? And they would be like, yes. And then I said, well, it's the same thing on the internet. Like, when some random man or woman, messages you on the internet to take your picture, you don't talk to strangers, right? So it's like having common sense. So doing your research, understanding, I feel like people, you want, it's a passion for you, right? Like, we're talking about it, and you want it so badly sometimes, and people kind of can prey off of the wants and needs people and take advantage of them. So it's really doing your due diligence and asking the questions. What other things? I think you have to have a really strong sense of self. Like it's a lot in acting too, in actors, right? Like you get ghosted for the first time ever, like you don't get responses. Like, how did I do in this edition? Well, no, you just don't know, right? Like there's no feedback. So you really have to have this really strong sense of self and understanding, and just to know that you're going to collect way more no's than you are yeses. But when those yeses come along, they're so important, like those little wins, and to celebrate them. And really, it sounds so like cheesy, but be nice, like be a good person, because people want to work with people that they like
Right.
it's a really small industry, even like how Carolyn and I met, like we know mutual people through, when you start the power of the internet and figuring things out, and people want to work with people that they like, and you have to have a great personality, be kind, it really is about the give, because it's a collaborative industry with photographers and hair and makeup and clients, and you just want to put your best foot forward. So I think that would be the best, like things that you just don't even think about, right?
Right. So it's pretty much common sense stuff.
But common sense sometimes seems to go out the window in our industry. So
that's what I was going to say next.
Right?
Not everybody has that.
No. So I think it's being grounded, right? Like you got to be grounded with who you are, and to have a life. I always say to my models, and we always say it in our talks, like get a life, like have life experiences. This isn't just the be all and end all. Oprah always says, wish for it, want it, and then let it go. And you have to kind of do the same thing. You got to do the work, but then you have to let it, like you can't be found wanting in this industry for sure.
Yeah, no, desperation is something people can smell a mile away.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I would like to discuss, how does somebody know when they're supposed to be doing acting or modeling or anything like that they want to do? Like what does it feel like when they find that aha moment of discovering their purpose?
Yeah, I think for any artist, they're just born that way. There's a creativity, there's a spark, there's an interest, and if it's allowed to bloom, and if they are allowed to explore, it really grows into something amazing that is a gift to the world. So that's one way, but not always. It doesn't always happen. I come from a medical family, and there were no actors. There's no creatives per se, like creatives that we know in our world, that were part of my family. And so I started in music. Actually, I was a classical musician, and then I studied opera, and I went into musical theater, and then I went to acting. So I jumped around a lot, and my family didn't really know what to do with me because they come from a medical background. So so I think the beautiful thing was, even though my mother didn't get me, she encouraged it. And she said, if you have such a passion about it, if you're so forthright about wanting to do it, then let's figure it out, And a lot of times I had to figure it out because she just didn't, she's also, I'm first generation here in the US. So there were a lot of things that I had to step up to the plate to take care of. And then, so I think for an artist in general, for a creative, it's, how do you nourish that? Because the spark is there and you can't deny it. And if it isn't as an actor, it might be as a writer, it might be as a director, producer, it could be as an agent, it could be as a manager, casting director, but it is something that is naturally within you, and it's also within you to say yes to it and lean into it.
Right. Yes, I absolutely agree with that. And what would you say?
Yeah, I think that like Caroline, like what Caroline said, like I grew up in a town, like I always talk about, I grew up in a town of 500 people, like in rural Canada. I've always loved fashion. I went to school for fashion, and it seemed like my mom was just like, my parents were probably like, she wants to pay money to study fashion in college, like, but it was always something in me. And I know this when I used to be a freelance wardrobe stylist. Like I love clothing and people and, but makeup artists that I work with, they, you know, photographers, there's that ingrained passion because we don't do what we do because it pays the bill. Like it pays like million, you know, like it's not the easiest thing you go into, and you like a lawyer, you come in and you're like, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to come out of this, I'm going to be making good money, you know, like people, you know, when you're an actor, there's also that, not that struggle, but there's that point of finding who you are, or in a model. A lot of models though, when they come to it, some girls always thought that they wanted to model because they, you know, like they were tall and people said, oh, you're tall, you should be a model, right? Like, and but all the girls that I scout, the ones that do the best and are the girls that they're like, you want me to what? You want me to take my picture? Like, you want me, you think I'm beautiful? Like,
Oh,
and I'm like, you'll see shortly on I'm launching this girl, and I scouted her when she was 15 and she's 18 now, and she's a curve model. She's a plus curve model, and she's beautiful. And I tell her that all the time, and I say like, you know, and it's taken her, I think that many years also to figure out like, okay, I kind of do want to do this, like, and she's leaning into it right now. And to see, we're starting a series called The Model Diaries with House Management. And so you guys can start seeing the journeys of a creative and of a model and when they first start. So it'll be interesting to see.
that does sound fun. It'd actually be nostalgic for me.
Well, I can relate to that, right? Like there's always those moments. So
Right. I did have one question. So now that, you know, everything is on a technical aspects, do you think that the height requirement for models is going to change ever? No. And what is the purpose behind that? What is the purpose behind them having to be a certain height?
I always tell people this when they come in to see me. I did not pick the heights and I did not pick the measurements. Like this was not, you know, I did not choose this. Like I always stress this with people. Before I was told this, I don't know if it's true, you know, like you don't know if it's true, but you know, when you're fitting a model, like clothing height wise, proportionate, you start with your smallest size and you work out. So, and sample sizes were always cut to a certain size. So it just, and then the camera is a beautiful thing and it adds 10 pounds magically, right? So I think, and you've seen the sizes of like heroin chic in the 90s kind of come in, and then you saw the athletic model, like, so you'll see difference. There will always be that height because the length, you know, the height with the legs, like it's a proportion thing. And when you photograph, right, versus someone who's 5'4" versus someone, you know, who's 5'10". So there's always going to be that, like even in curve, like you need to be 5'9", 5'10", right? Like, there's still a requirement. Men have to be over 6 feet. Like it's, and they'll know, they'll be like, I think he's short. If you can't pass someone who's like 5'11" and a half, the clients know. They're like, are you sure he's 6 feet? And I'm like, they know he's not 6 feet. Like, so, but, and I know acting is different, right? Like in acting is the complete opposite. Like you can be all.
Everyone's welcome.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not as inclusive.
Well, they had Apple boxes in film and TV, so we can always cheat height.
And camera angles.
Yeah. So where do you see us all heading to in the industry with everything that's going on?
I think we're all hopeful to get back in the room and for things to move forward. But I think this test that we've all been given to bring everything and to meet online will have its place for sure. Because for a lot of production companies, it's actually working. You know, for a lot of offices, it cuts down on time. People don't need to travel. They're not going to be late. You know, there's a little bit more control from the actor standpoint of producing their own self-tape, that they get to work in an environment that's comfortable for them, that's home. I do know, I hear from actors all the time that they do miss going to that office, that ritual of driving to the office or taking the subway to the office and walking down the hallway and signing in. They miss that ritual. And so I always encourage them to find their new ritual, because what they get now are audition appointments. And they're like, all right, I guess I got to do this before, you know, it's expired. I can't upload it. And then, so it's just, here's the best light today, I'll just do it, you know? And so I asked them to find what their ritual is, whether it's a physicality in, and how they prepare and launch into the piece, or if it's a piece of clothing, or if it's something that's actionable, something that's movement oriented, that helps click them in, so they feel they're in their mind creating the environment that's needed, rather than feeling like it's a corner of their bedroom.
Right, right. Yeah, that does pose a problem with some stagnation when you're at home and you're all nice and cozy. And
Sure.
yeah. You know, you're in the middle of an audition and all of a sudden baby cries, cat scratching at the door, and you're like, you know what, just So finally, I would like to ask if you have any words of wisdom or encouragement for artists that you would like to share related to whatever you want them to know or hear from your heart.
I always say this, I'm always like, choose your choice, right? So if it's something that you're passionate about and it's something that you love, don't listen to the naysayers and the other things. If it's something that you love and you want to do, you'll find a way, right? I my dream of opening my agency is years in the making, right? Like I work full time and I have this, and if you want it, you have your hustle, right? So if you really want something, I want you to choose your choice, and go for it, because we only live once, as we've learned in the pandemic. So stop living for everyone else and start living for yourself.
Right.
And that is how we should be better at this, came up with, is the courage to be vulnerable, to live your authentic truth.
And with Purpose at Play, you know, that came about because I wanted to encapsulate the things that have supported me and helped me along the way. And, you know, the things, I always believe that you already possess everything that you need. It's just sometimes it takes a little time to uncover it and to explore it. And sometimes it's a reminder from outside yourself, but if you listen and you hear it, it unravels in the most beautiful way. And I always endeavor to come from a place of give, because I think, you know, there's a lot of noise around us.
Mm.
And there's a lot of mean around us, like mean spirited.
Mm.
And if we can start from a place of give and start from a place of curiosity, I think it really leads to both your purpose and the play that you're meant to do. So Purpose at Play.
I love it. I really do. You two ladies get into conversation on that IG live. At every little drop, it's just like, I agree with everything. It's just like, you know, some of it's affirmation, like, you know, confirming that I'm on the right track, or I'm hearing or thinking correctly. And, you know, and it's just a lot of wisdom. And I really appreciate you both for putting it out there, because we should honestly be better at this by now.
All the time.
Thank you, first of all, for Purpose at Play, and we should be better at this. Now, in my time zone, you show up usually about 11 or after in Central Time Zone. So in your time zones on IG Live, what time would that be?
It's 9 a.m. Pacific, and
Takes me forever to remember this all the time. It's noon, lunchtime. Your lunchtime with Dayna.
Well, I really enjoyed you both, and thank you so much again for your time. I'm touched that you shared your wisdom and time with me.
No, I'm so grateful that you asked us. Yeah, thank you.
so happy to support you, and thank you for inviting us. For sure.
Anything that we can do, please let us know. So
Thank you very much, and I wish you both a great.
Thanks.
and we look forward. Please let us know when it's out. I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will.
Okay.
Everybody, get popping.